Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we are finding though, Robin, is we've been at this over 20 years now. So a lot of the folks that came in the market last, 4, 5, 6 years. If you weren't around back in 2008, when the market really changed, no one's really even had an opportunity to really do a short sale, work on a short sale, take a short sale listing.
Right. Well, the services that you guys offer are so. Anybody, it may be easy, right? So I think there's a lot of newer agents that if they came across a short sale opportunity, would just pass it.
Yeah, that's, you're right.
And they don't need,
You know,
I mean, you can tell them.
yeah, sure. Sure, that's why it's like, it's really.
We'll have the next thing here.
Oh, down the hall, it's your.
Okay, so they're all away, we can't all of that. See, you can still say. You're, specialized, you specialize in short stuff, because you've got a team that doesn't,
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are really super dominant. It means the show's going, you guys have been on this.
What do you want to ask? Who does a lot of, he does the bulk of continuing ed teaching for, Tri-County.
Okay,
We have 2 classes and he does them. So you see, I'm more the one behind the scenes of the deals, like we just call that the bank deal, and he does the bulk of the teaching and it works well for us. So we've been doing it a long time.
is that right?
Yeah.
Well, good.
Set up right there. See it?
Yes, I'll do that.
Right, we're gonna have more on Zoom today than first.
That's kind of how it is sometimes. Yeah.
It's certainly.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at the bridge, yeah, it's been testing, it's really so high. Yeah.
We're going upstairs and see if we like that.
You're ready to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, how are you? Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Happy Valentine's Day, thanks for reminding me.
Somebody just reminded me that I want to get the chicken, so now it's on my mind.
Absolutely.
It's that way.
And we're gonna dance.
Now it's all that.
Great, office is pretty new, we opened it in May. Six.
You can share it, okay, all right, no.
So.
Hey, I'll send you information.
the next thing that they have, but appreciate the love. That was. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who's that?
What's that? Sorry. So I'll just tell you, it's the next slide.
Yeah, just give me a little cue and
Yeah.
I'll be on.
Yeah.
Am I in the chase?
It's the issue of.
Oh.
Beyond just like compliments now. Also, you like people that don't come to meetings, opposed to
Started.
Ready to go whenever you guys
All right. All right, how's everybody doing today?
Great.
We're talking earlier, everybody over the birds hangover yet? It was a long day yesterday, wasn't it? Oh, boy. Long day, long day. Well, we're Denise and Bill McCormick. We're the co-owners of CK Capital Management. And we appreciate Robin lining us up to come in today. We've been making the rounds to all the local Keller Williams offices in the area. And what our primary focus today is to update realtors on the impact of the CARES Act mortgage forbearance program. We're starting to see fallout from folks that during COVID were in this payment holiday program and they're exiting out of it. And our phone is ringing 2 to 3 times every week, or sorry, every month, excuse me, 2 to 3 times every month. Title companies, realtors, attorneys, and their transactions are going sideways at the end because the homeowners were in this program and they didn't let their realtors know that they were in the program. And what we're seeing is we're seeing payoffs come in higher than what the homeowners thought they owed. And we're seeing second mortgages on the property. Okay, so we want to walk you through a little Q&A that you can start asking today. And just by way of background, Denise and I started our company over 20 years ago. All we do are short sale foreclosure negotiations. That's all we do. Very small niche business. We handle the whole Pennsylvania market, Delaware, Maryland, but we do them all over. Denise has a KW group in Hawaii that she does all their short sales. Florida, we do them all over the United States. But before we jump into the CARES Act, just give you a sense for what it is that we do. So typically what happens is a realtor will identify a homeowner that's upside down in their mortgage. They owe more than the value, they're distressed, okay? And what we want to do is, so you're wearing your realtor hat. What we do is we consult that homeowner up front. We'll educate them on the credit score implications, the tax implications of a short sale. What are the benefits of a short sale? And we'll go over the process with them just to help educate the consumer. And obviously, being a realtor, you don't want to be giving tax advice, legal advice. So that's where we kind of wear that hat, and you have a little bit of an arm's length, okay? But I mean, what our primary focus, anybody ever been involved in a short sale before? All right, Robin, okay. All right, so if you've never been involved in a short sale, and this is why we're kind of out trying to update folks on what we're seeing in the market, is we're going to talk a little bit about during COVID and the fact that the mortgage companies turned off any new foreclosure filings. So we're going to give you an example of some stats that we're going to start to see more inventory come on the market as a result of what we're seeing now. Okay. All right, you can skip through that next one. Okay, so the CARES Act Mortgage Forbearance Program. Denise and I teach continuing ed all over the Tri-County area. We go into real estate offices, we go into the local broker associations, and we teach continuing ed, and we cover this. And, you know, I'm not surprised that no one really understands what CARES Act is, because it wasn't publicized a lot out there in the marketplace. And basically, during the pandemic, March 2020, the Fed went to all the mortgage companies and said, look, we don't want people being kicked out of their rental. So there was an eviction moratorium for rentals, but they also went to all the mortgage companies and said, you need to offer a payment holiday program for struggling homeowners. All right. You know, I'm sure we all know somebody in the city here that is in the hospitality industry, bar, restaurants. They were shut down, they were shuttered up. Some never opened back up again. All right. So all the homeowner had to do, if they had a February back loan, was call Bank of America, call Wells Fargo and say, I'm struggling due to COVID financially, and they had to put them in this program. It only applied to February back loans. So Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, USDA loans. If you had one of those loans and it was your principal residence, meaning you live there, it wasn't an investment property or second home down the shore, it was your home, you could apply for this payment holiday program. All right. Now, here's the challenge with this. Okay. Think about March, April, May 2020. There were stint checks going out. There was PPP money, child tax credits. Well, a lot of folks heard this program and said, wait a minute, I can get a 6, 12, or 18-month holiday for making my mortgage payments. I'm going to jump on that government gravy train all day long. But they thought forbearance meant forgiveness. They never knew they had to pay it back. All right. So now these homeowners have exited out of the program. And if they're still struggling financially, all right, now they're calling you as their realtor and they're giving you bad intel, bad intel on how much they owe on the mortgage or that they were even in this program. Okay. But the way this was originally rolled out, all right, it was a 6, 12, or 18-month program. So if you went into the program, and by the way, all you had to do as a homeowner or borrower is call Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or go through their website. You don't have to provide any proof that you lost your job. You don't have to provide any financial information. All you had to do was pick up the phone and call. It was so easy. But the problem was the Fed didn't educate the consumer as to what they were signing up for. the banks were told to give this program, but they were never given any guidance on what happens after the fact, okay? So initially, how you would go into this program is you call your lender and they say, okay, we'll put you in a 6-month payment holiday. At the end of the 6 months, we'll review you. If you're still struggling, we'll extend you to 12 months. And if you're still struggling after a year, we'll extend you up to 18 months. All right. Well, here's the challenge. All right. If my payment is $2,000 a month, my mortgage payment, and I haven't paid for 18 months, I got 36 grand out there. All right. It doesn't go away. What we're seeing two things. Yeah. We're seeing two things. Okay. We're seeing on conventional mortgages, the mortgage companies are taking that 2 times 18, 36 grand. And on conventional mortgages, they're putting a balloon payment out there. They're putting a balloon on the back end of a homeowner's mortgage if they were in the forbearance program. So what that means is that 36 grand that's sitting out here, it's to be paid at time of sale, refinance, or end of term. Okay, we're not seeing end of term yet. The phone calls that our offices are getting are from title companies saying, hey, we're about a week and a half out from settlement and we got a payoff, and the payoff came in higher than what you had this property under contract for. Because what the homeowners are doing is the homeowners, they live and die by their mortgage statement. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP, they haven't changed their mortgage statement format in years. Well, guess what? You know, your mortgage statement has your principal, your interest, your escrow amounts. It may have past due. Majority of the mortgage statements don't reflect anything to do with forbearance. Okay, so what's happening is homeowner calls realtor comes out and says, homeowner says, oh, I owe 180 grand. We're in the trust business, right? Homeowner says you owe 180 grand. Fantastic. You go out, you pull comps. All right, you're going to walk away with $30,000. Fantastic. But if they don't tell you they were in forbearance and you don't get a full payoff, going by the mortgage statement, all right, you're already, they think they owe 180, but they owe 180 plus 36 grand. So they're finding this out a week or two before settlement that they don't have enough money in the transaction. Okay. The other thing we're seeing. Question.
What do you mean when you say payoff? Like what's actually happening right there in that double transaction? To get rid of the old mortgage that you went on.
Okay, so when they defer that amount, it's a balloon payment, right? Okay, it's due to be paid at time of sale.
Right.
And when you work with a homeowner, you say, okay, what do you owe? Right, on any listing appointment. Well, most homeowners are telling you what they owe based on their mortgage statement. The mortgage statement, like when you go and do a settlement, there's a reason why the title company gets a full payoff. Because are there any taxes or anything out there that's in betwixt? So most times your mortgage statement is not going to match your payoff. Okay, the final payoff, right? Of what's, you know, it's good through this date, and that's what the title company uses to pay the lender. The challenge is that the $180,000 mortgage statement doesn't reflect the $36,000 in forbearance.
Right.
So the only way you're going to catch that, if the homeowner says, yeah, I was in forbearance and they deferred it, all you have to do is get a payoff. Don't go by the mortgage statement. That's where the homeowners didn't understand what they were signing up for. They don't understand that it's important to tell you. So, and this is, and as you can imagine, you know, well, I would expect as a consumer, I'm going to see that on my mortgage statement. Not the case. Not the case. And then we're seeing on, you're okay. Next one. Denise, you want to talk a little bit about the second mortgages?
Yes, so on if the individual has a government-backed loan, like it originated as an FHA loan, then they're not putting that 36,000 on the back end. They're putting on a separate second mortgage, a non-interest bearing loan that will show up only on title. They're not going to get statements. They don't have to make payments on it. It's a program that the government is offering to the FHA individuals, and the company is called ISN Corporation that bills and collects for housing and urban development. So some of these titles are coming in where the title company is saying, oh my gosh, there's a second mortgage. And the seller says, I didn't know it was important to tell you that I did a modification years ago. These seconds have been around on FHA-backed loans for years and years and years, but they're gonna be resurfacing again with the people that participated in the CARES Act, because they're now offering this to them as well. So they take the 36 grand, sits out there, it does not have to be paid until the time of sale. 3-4 years go on, do you think that person showing you the mortgage statement remembers anything about that 36 grand? They have not a clue. It's forgotten about. And where a lot of this is affecting people is, think about it, it doesn't even have to be a short sale, right? You told the individual that they're gonna be walking away with 50 grand. They're going to buy another house. They think they have 50 grand to put down on the new home purchase. And then the payoffs come in, or the second, so it's affecting on the flip side as well, because they can't purchase for what they thought they were going to purchase for, because now they're only walking on 10 versus 50.
Yeah, let me give you a couple quick examples, okay? And these are real examples that realtors gave us when we're out teaching or we're having sessions like this. We had an agent up in Tri-County in Malvern teaching a class, and we were going through a little Q&A. And this is over a year ago when we just started getting the phone calls, going over Q&A and saying, you know, what can you ask? What should you ask when you're out there? And we got in a whole dialogue, you know, well, you know, do you ask how much do you owe on your mortgage? Yes. Well, why can't you ask a question where you're ever in the CARES Act mortgage forbearance program? All right. So an agent, she raised her hand. She said, well, can I give you a real life example? Here's what I'm living with right now. I was supposed to close on a home a month ago. All right. A week and a half before settlement, the title company calls me and says, hey, look, you know, there's a second mortgage showing up on title. She said, well, no. She said, well, where your transaction is now, your homeowner has to bring money to the table. So she calls the homeowner, and the homeowner had an FHA originated loan, and she had an 18-month forbearance, and they put a second mortgage on it. She didn't know what she was signing up for, and out of sight, out of mind. So she calls the homeowner and says, hey, there's a second mortgage showing up on your property with housing urban development. And the homeowner says, well, I was in that mortgage forbearance program. Was that important to tell you? Okay. And she said, well, yeah, because instead of you walking away with 30 grand, now you're 30 grand short. So she said, here's my situation. The buyer's agent I knew, the buyer's agent was not happy because we didn't disclose there wasn't enough to pay off the loan in full. All right. And we were working through it. The buyer wasn't as happy. The buyer already paid for appraisals, paid for inspections. She said, thank God that the buyer hadn't moved out of their house yet and all their stuff was on a moving truck. She said, imagine if they had to go into temporary housing. So the buyer was threatening lawsuit. So the homeowner, instead of walking away with 30 grand, had to go take out a personal loan to pay the difference. Right? So she thought she was walking away with money. We had another scenario where a broker that we know very well, we're having a session. She said, I had a client that was walking away with $80,000. All right. I did the whole math for her. Wasn't a distressed property. She's walking away with 80. Here, she never told me that she was in forbearance. We got the final payoff. Instead of walking away with 80, she walked away with 30. Guess what? She was using that 80 to buy a new home. She had to cancel the contract. She had to go move into an apartment. She didn't realize what she was signing up for. Here's a mortgage statement right here, mortgage statement, 8 pages, 8-page mortgage statement. You don't have that here. This is just a sample.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Yeah. But here on the very back page, if you were in forbearance, dial 1-800 housing urban development. You think the homeowner's going to look through 8 pages to determine that? That's where the confusion is. March 2020, April, May 2020, 5 million homeowners were in mortgage forbearance. All right. Today, there's 2 million active homeowners still in the mortgage forbearance program. They will exit out in the end of March will be the last of the ones. So there's approximately right now 28%, if you look at Mortgage Bankers Association, 28% of the folks that went in this forbearance program came out with a payment deferral, right? And then another 20% came out with the partial claim, second mortgage. All right, so you're looking at roughly 40% of the people that were in this have either a second mortgage, all right, or they have a balloon. So what I did, all right, after talking with a bunch of realtors and doing a bunch of training sessions, is we came up with a little Q&A here. All right, your neighbor to the south, Delaware. Delaware is actually changing their property disclosures. It's becoming so prevalent. They're actually modifying their property disclosures, and they're adding a carve out for the homeowner to check the box where they get forbearance, yes or no. Okay, so what he did, just did a little cheat sheet for y'all. All right, questions that you can ask your homeowner on a listing appointment to uncover this, because the way the program was rolled out so quickly, as I said, the banks did not explain it well. All the homeowners were concerned about was not being kicked out of their property during the pandemic. So if you are on a listing appointment, you're talking to a client, you know, out of curiosity, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, were you in the mortgage forbearance program? Yes or no? If they say no, all right, business as usual, like you would any normal listing. However, if they say, yes, as a matter of fact, I was in the program, all right, I was in that payment holiday program, you want to drill down a little bit more. Okay, you were in the program. Were you in the 6, 12, or 18-month program? Oh, I was in the 12-month program, but then they extended me to the 18 months. All right, well, what's your mortgage payment? So 2,000 times 18. So now you're, okay, what's the mortgage statement say? And does that not reflect? So do I need to add that money back onto it? So if they say, yeah, I was in the program and I was in the 18-month program. Okay, great. What did you and your mortgage lender agree to as far as you repaying those payments? Did they put a balloon on your mortgage? All right, or did they put a second mortgage on the property? Now, again, what we're seeing is conventional mortgages, balloon payment out here at the end. All right, and then FHAs, we're seeing second mortgages. If they say no, they deferred it to the back end of my mortgage. All right, all you need to do then is request a payoff. Don't go by the mortgage statement, just request a payoff, and that'll incorporate that balloon payment that's out there. Okay, if they say, no, I'm pretty sure they put a second mortgage on my property, then you're going to want to do two things. You're going to want to get a payoff from lender number one, who is ever servicing that loan. All right, and you're going to then get whoever you use for title, have them pull a mortgage and judgment search. Some call it a present owner search, because you want to see who that second mortgage is being serviced with. All right, because as Denise said, there's been a change at HUD for the servicing companies. So you need to figure out who you go find to get a payoff on that second mortgage. All right, because if I was in forbearance and I had an FHA loan, well, my mortgage is with Bank of America. All right, but that second mortgage is actually owned by Housing Urban Development. To confuse matters even more, Housing Urban Development never sends a monthly mortgage statement, ever. So a year down the road, 2 years down the road, because what's happening is they take that payment, it's principal, interest, and taxes. All right, so the interest is already in there. And what they do is they take that 36 grand and put a second mortgage out here. All right, and you pay it off at time of sale, time of refinance, or end of term. For some reason, and this has been HUD for years, HUD never sends a mortgage statement. The homeowner has to remember what they did 2 years ago, or what's going to happen to you if you take on a listing is you're going to find that out a week or two before settlement. As property values are going up, this was never really an issue. Right now, we're starting to see a little bit of normalization in the market. And even though there's equity that's been there in these last couple of years, if someone hasn't paid a mortgage for 6, 12, 18 months, they're going to cut into that equity a little bit. Okay, so that's why we put together a little hit list. Just, it's really protect yourself, protect your homeowner. Don't assume they know that what they even signed up for. Here's the other thing that we're seeing. All right, Denise had an agent. She was in our session like this, and she came up to Denise the other way, and she said, "Can I make one recommendation for you guys?" She goes, "I would have you start telling the folks that you're updating and teaching, have them start asking the buyer's agent, was the buyer in the mortgage forbearance program?" She said, "I had a transaction, buyer was in the mortgage forbearance program, Well, the forbearance program gave an indication that you needed help, you couldn't afford your mortgage, right? So the buyer got a pre-qual somehow, right? But when they did the final underwriting, the buyer got denied for their mortgage. Okay, guess what? The market had softened, so she had to put it back on the market. And what did she end up selling the house for less?
It's like 17 grand less. So of course, that seller to the listing agent, do I have any grounds to sue, blah, 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 you know, I mean, they didn't disclose. Can they? Who knows? But they don't know to disclose what they don't know. That's the problem here, like, and real quick, back to this payoff, to touch on a second what Bill was saying, so this case, they come send the payoffs a lot of time via fax. This was an agent that just happened to call us and said, hey, you know, this person, she was in the forbearance program, do you mind taking a look at this payoff for me? So she faxed it to us, looked through it, she said, I think they could sell the house for, you know, for 500. Well, the payoff came in at 4 something. I said, the payoff came in at 412. She said, I'm sure I can get 500. But she didn't see that last page. When we got a hold of Housing and Urban Development, they owed $37,000 on that partial. So it affected the whole entire deal. So just this payoff is so key, and reading every page for your homeowner. And if you don't understand it, just pass it by somebody. We read these all the time, even if it's not a short sale. This didn't become a short sale. The market was booming. She put it on at like 530 and she got it. So she could pay off the partial, pay off the loan, and still walk away with money. But she would have been given the wrong amount of money had they not called HUD. So that's how it's just so hard to.
The reason that the phone's starting to ring more now is because in the last, previous year and a half, 2 years, the values were going up. So folks that were in this and they came out, they were able to walk away with money because of all the equity that was built up, right? They were able to walk away and there was no issue. Now that the pricing has, the market's somewhat normalized, now the phone's starting to ring. All right, so again, just use that little cheat sheet. If you run across one and you're not sure, okay, just give us a call. We can help coach on what you need to have the homeowner do. If the homeowner says, I have no idea at all, I don't know, I was in it, I don't know what happened. All right, instruct them to call their mortgage company and ask the question, what did you do with my payment holiday, my mortgage forbearance amount? Do I have a second mortgage or do I have a balloon? And then take direction from there. Okay.
And as uncomfortable as it is to ask, I mean, I know you might know a lot of the clients, they might be a relative, etc., but a lot of the mortgage and judgment searches have come in with people with Commonwealth of Pennsylvania liens, municipal liens. They were in that program because they couldn't afford to pay their mortgage. They weren't paying the Fed. We're seeing IRS tax liens. So yeah, they can walk away with this 20 or 30 grand, but on your mortgage and judgment search, you'd be shocked how many IRS liens, Commonwealth and municipal liens there are that are also affecting the way they're walking away, how much they're walking away with.
Any questions on that, on the Q&A?
Yeah, a couple of three. On the conventional, are they always balloons? Did you ever see any that were like a 6 month? That like 6 payments or 12 payments for payments or always balloons?
What we're seeing right now is just what we said, conventional or balloons and FHA or second mortgage.
That's so it's kind of more bank.
Yeah. That's we haven't seen one yet that has differed from that.
If you're drafting conventional FHA, is there any variances on USDA or VA?
The USDA VA.
Now, what we're seeing on USDA VA though is when the payoffs come in, because they 100% finance, depending on what they bought, very few of them have equity if they bought in the last few years because they didn't put any money down at all, but they're not putting the seconds on USDA or the VA. So just adding it to that principle.
Yeah.
So that's that where's the conventional one? Everything for FHA, which is
Right.
only in the second before you get work, and everything else is bigger than conventional.
Right.
Thinking of it. Mhm.
You mentioned FHA, look on the title report for the servicer. Title reports, if you don't list the service or only list the UG. But is there another way to find a servicer? Is it always the same servicer? I realize they may switch vendors.
Yeah.
It's always for now a company called ISN Corporation, and it will say Housing and Urban Development 37,000. Housing and Urban Development is how they list it, but the servicing company, 100% ISA.
And I said is the service of the monthly houses. Yes.
They're servicing for HUD. It used to be Novak, and they recently changed about a year and a half ago
Contrast.
to,
Yeah, they, yep.
to this ISA. It is near impossible to get the payoff, so you need to be aware of that too. They're about a 2 to 3 week turnaround just to get that payoff in. They're inundated. They're servicing for the whole entire country for every.
If you have a primary contact there, share with us, I said, or I mean, phone numbers or website.
To order the payoffs, it's via an email. So people will get on the phone and we can share an email with you, which isn't a private email, but don't get on the phone. You'll never get anywhere. You need to just blow up the email constantly until you get the payoff.
They will set ISN.
It's HUD. I'll have to get it to you. I have to pull up the actual email going on office orders all of them, but do not call. People say I called and left them messages. They're not going to answer their phone. It's 1-800.gov. Can you imagine how many calls they get a day?
That's where the mortgage and judgment search will come into play, right? Just so you know that it's at least out there, okay? All right, we'll get you that. I want to talk about choices.
So, yeah, it will. A lot of you, I know, raise your hand that you weren't familiar with short sales. So short sales have been around for a long time. And what that is if you meet with a client and they tell you they owe $200,000 on their home and you run the comps and you see you can only sell it for 200 or less, and they have some form of demonstrated financial hardship, then they would be what's called a candidate for a short sale. We present to the bank an offer showing that they have a financial hardship and the bank agrees to accept less than the full balance owed on their mortgage. They owe 200, the bank will agree to take 150 after realtor fees, closing costs, transfer taxes. They will do short sales, the banks, for just fees. You can sell it for 200, they owe 200. The bank will agree if there is a form of a financial hardship to net 180, even though the purchase price is at or even slightly above that payoff, because they see this person hasn't paid their mortgage in 6 months, a year. There has to be some form of demonstrated hardship. You can't have that client that comes to you that says they don't like being a landlord anymore and they want to sell their property because they don't like collecting the rent, but they have 100 grand in their bank account. They are not a candidate to be a short sale. There has to be job loss, death, divorce, disability for somebody to be approved.
Yeah, just like the simple calculation, when you meet with a homeowner and you do a net sheet, and here's how much you're gonna walk away with. It's really the same type of calculation. What do you owe? You pull comps, here's what it sells for. All right, after closing fees, here's what the bank's gonna net. All right. So, but through that calculation, you're realizing that they owe more than the value. All right, and a lot of times there's going to be homeowners that aren't even aware that they are a short sale. They know that they need to sell. They may not tell you they're financially distressed, right? But then you come out and you pull your comps and you say, hey, you know, congratulations, I think we can sell this to you. Sell this for 300, and they said, well, I owe 350. All right, anybody ever worked with a homeowner that thought the house was worth more than your opinion, right? So a lot of times homeowners, they know they're distressed, but they're thinking, oh, I know, you know, that the unit down the street or the unit in my building or the house down around the corner, it's sold for, you know, $100,000. Man, I think I could get that too. And then inform them that their house hasn't been updated and that this one had a redone kitchen and maybe you had a brand new basement put in. So it's a real simple calculation. It's not any magical secret. Right, to calculate whether they're upside down. Denise talked about financial hardship. All right, the most common reason is job loss. Okay, all right, you got downsized, you lost your job. I mean, just look what's going on in the tech sector right now. All right, Facebook, first time ever, layoffs, Amazon, all right, Google, Salesforce, Microsoft, all these big companies now, we overhired and we're going to get rid of 10% of our workforce. Well, all that stuff rolls down, right? All that stuff rolls down. So we're going to start to see more folks that are struggling financially. As long as the values maintain their level, all right, they should be fine. They can't afford the home, they sell and they walk away. But guess what? every month that ticks on, their mortgage payment or their balance doesn't go down. If they're not making a mortgage payment, it goes up. Okay, we're gonna talk to you a little bit about what we're seeing in the industry.
And relocation, real quick, I recall this afternoon, the person just bought the house in August 2022. She's a short sale. She was FHA financing. She is current, but she's being required to move out of the state. So relocation will present some financial hardship to the bank, even though she is current because it's a mandated move. But unfortunately, when you're putting 3.5% down, you're probably a short sale from the minute you walk out the door, unless you can stay in the house. Same thing as VA and USDA. I mean, she's made 3 mortgage payments, maybe 4.
There was a stat the other day, they said 25% of the FHA originated loans that originated in the last 2 years, they estimate 25% already upside down on their mortgage. They overpaid, right? They got a competitive situation. FHA loan, when you put 3.5%, 4% down, right? And then the market starts to soften. I have one right now, just a quick story. A couple they bought in February of 21. February 21, October or 22, sorry, February 22. By October of 22, they're getting divorced. All right. 35% of our short sales are divorced. Dual income, right? They buy the property, but individually they can't necessarily afford the home, right? Well, in their scenario, the realtor had it on the market last summer. She said, Bill, I had over 29 showings. I had it listed for almost 45 days. And in that market, going back last summer, couldn't find one buyer. Overpriced. She said these folks got in, they paid $50,000 over appraised value in February of 2022, right? She said they used all their cash. They wanted to get into the home and they were in a competitive situation. So she brought all their cash, they paid 50 grand over. By October, she said the neighborhood had softened to the tune of about $30,000. She said from February to October, there was an $80,000 swing because they overpaid. And guess what? Now they're a short sale. And we're getting it approved. I mean, it's under contract and we should be going to sell in another few weeks. But this is what we're seeing and it's unfortunate because a lot of what we're seeing with the delinquency rates, it's those first time home buyers that got in a competitive situation, overpaid, and no one plans on getting a divorce. No one plans on losing their job. No one plans on getting sick. No one plans on dying. But at the top of the market and the bottom of the market, that stuff happens all day long. These are life events that are causing these folks to fall behind on their mortgage. You want to talk a little bit about estate real quick?
So another financial hardship is obviously death. If you die, you can't pay your mortgage. If you have to move out of the house into an assisted living or in with your adult children, you can't pay the mortgage. So we're seeing in a lot of those clients will say, and or the adult children will say to you as the agent, what benefit does it have for me to list and sell this property? Well, if mom or dad passed away, until the house sells, you can't get to the insurance claims that if there are insurance claims that are available, they can go to the adult children. So we won now, there's a $40,000 insurance claim, but they can't get to it until the house sells and you close out the estate. So there's multiple reasons why they wouldn't just want that property to be foreclosed upon. Some adult children would they say my mom or dad would be turning over in their grave if they knew that I let the house that they cherished for 30 years that I grew up in, just dug my head in the sand and let it foreclose. So some of them do it simply for that reason, but it's a way easier approval process on an estate because obviously there's no financials to look at. The estate is insolvent. You get it on the market, there's no financial review, but don't walk away from those adult children that say they want to sell the house because there's no benefit to them because there is to be able to close out that estate. We're seeing a lot of 70-year-old sellers that unfortunately owe more than the value of their home. They refi and they can no longer afford it, so they have to move into assisted living. Reverse mortgages are becoming very popular. A lot of them were underwritten in 07 and 08. So now mom or dad have outlived the money. They need to move out of the house. You can definitely short sell a reverse mortgage. They're becoming the new hot
So
ticket out there.
yeah, particularly in this environment where, property values are going up and up. And if you're sitting there and like, I'm, 75 years old, I'm on a fixed income, I'm paying more for gas, I'm paying more for electric, I'm paying more for groceries, right? And they're looking at, I got $200,000 in equity that just happened in the last 2 years of my home. I can either struggle to make my mortgage payments and live on what I have, or I can take all the equity out of my home that I can and live out my years comfortably and let my kids figure it out after I'm long and dead. All right, so we're seeing a lot more reverse mortgage short sales because mom passed away, we have to put dad in assisted living, or mom and dad both passed away. Now the kids have mom and dad's house, not realizing mom and dad were too proud to tell them that they were struggling financially and took all the equity out. Right, so we're going to see, we are seeing a lot of this now. Okay, so I'm facing foreclosure. I'm so frustrated with my lender. They won't work with me. I've tried loan modifications. I failed. The bank's foreclosing on me. Why would I want to do a short sale? I can go declare bankruptcy. All right, but that could be 7 years on my credit. All right, I can try to do a deed in lieu where I hand the deed back over to the mortgage company. Deed in lieu simply means you hand the deed over before they foreclose. In Pennsylvania, foreclosure action has to go through the courts. All right, it takes about 12 months from missed payment to a sheriff's sale. All right, in Pennsylvania, because the lenders give that homeowner about 5 to 6 months to bring the loan current. If they can't bring it current after 5 to 6 months, the mortgage companies will hire a local attorney. Local attorney goes into the courthouse and they file what's called a lis pendens, pending litigation. All right, and that's a civil action. It takes another 5 to 6 months to go through the courts for the property to be taken back. So prior to that, though, all the major mortgage lenders, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, their collection calls, they don't want to have that homeowner go into foreclosure. They don't want that. But they also have to realize if you can't bring the loan current, all right, the only way for me, all right, to get this bad debt off my books is to repossess the asset that my mortgage is backed by, the home, right? In Pennsylvania, it's just a legal process for them to retake back the asset. So what collections is doing is we're, calling, can you make payment current? But then they also have an outreach group and they're sending letters to any struggling homeowner. Have you considered a deed in lieu? Have you considered a short sale? Have you considered a loan modification? Something to help you save your home. And if you can't save it, you need to consider selling it. Well, why would the lenders want to do a short sale? Right? They can take less today. They don't have to hire an attorney to go through a 12-month legal process, 6-month legal process once it hits the courts. Right? They want to get the bad debt off their books as soon as possible. So the collection department actually sends out a letter, consider your options. So if I'm a homeowner, I can put my head in the sand and say, let it foreclose, I'm done, walk away. Well, if my mortgage is $200,000, right, when they foreclose on me and they take the house back at sheriff's sale, they put a $200,000 judgment against me. All right. Eventually, the bank will put it back on the market as an REO, real estate owned or bank owned property. And let's say they sell it for $50,000 below that. All right. Well, my $200,000 judgment gets reduced. Now my judgment is $50,000. If the lenders put a judgment against a homeowner, they can attach wages, they can collect in perpetuity. So just putting your head in the sand as a homeowner isn't the right idea. Okay. And I say to homeowners all the time, they get so frustrated. We're like counselors a lot because they have a life event. They lost their job or they're getting divorced. A lot of these sellers are not in a good way because they're losing their home. But say the homeowners all the time. All right. You want to walk away, you're frustrated, you want to let it foreclose, that's fine. Do you want to maybe get a credit card? Maybe a Home Depot credit card or a Pottery Barn credit card. Think you might get a credit card in the next couple of years? Yeah, probably. Okay. You think you might, what kind of car are you driving? You think you might need a new car loan in the next 5 or 7 years? Well, yeah, all right, good luck doing any of that if you have a foreclosure on your credit. Right, so short sales, and he said they've been around, and we've been at it 20 years, they've been around longer than us. All right, why is that beneficial? One is the mortgage companies agree to report the debt is settled. There is no judgment. All right, so the lender's saying, hey, I know you owe me $350,000, Joe and Sue. All right, you owe me $350, but market value is only $300. If I foreclose on Joe and Sue and I take this house back, I'm not going to be able to put it back on the market and sell it for $350 if it's only worth $300. So the lenders realize it's better to take some today and let that homeowner walk away. And the other benefit there is that the lender agrees to waive the shortfall amount. So in a short sale, the lender's saying, we're going to take less. We're going to report your debt as settled to all the credit bureaus. We're going to talk how that differs from a foreclosure. All right. And we're going to let you walk away from the shortfall amount. So so for the homeowner, it's really just wipe the slate clean. All right. The other thing is in a short sale situation, because there's no proceeds, right? There's no proceeds here. The mortgage company will pay all of the seller's closing fees. They'll pay realtor commission. They'll pay transfer tax, all right, to the city and state and county. And they'll pay title company fees. So the homeowner isn't writing a check for any of their customary closing fees either. All right. So what the lender does is you owe $350, property sells for $300. After that, those fees get paid. Here's what we're going to net. The difference between what we net and what you owe is what's considered forgiven debt. Okay. So here's the other thing. It's in every approval letter. And this is standard boilerplate language as the other two items are. Any forgiven debt must be reported to the IRS and a 1099-C is issued to that homeowner. All right, so using that scenario we had up on the board earlier, $50,000 shortfall, okay? So I get my approval letter from Bank of America, Wells Fargo. Congratulations, Bill, we've approved you for your short sale. We've approved this price. Here are all the closing fees. We're going to report your debt is settled. We're going to waive the deficiency balance, but we have to report that to the IRS. Okay. Every January for any foreclosure or short sale for the previous year, every January, the mortgage companies issue 1099-Cs. Same time of year they issue the 1098s for your mortgage interest deduction for those of you that have mortgages. Okay. So then I got to take that 1099-C. It's as if I had a job where I made 50 grand. Now I got to pay income tax on it. All right. Now, back in 2007, Congress, when the mortgage industry imploded back then, Congress enacted what's called the Mortgage Debt Services Relief Act. Okay. It's been in place since 2007. 2017, it went away for 3 years. Congress renewed it. And again, don't give tax advice. If you have a homeowner that you're working with and they're doing a short sale, direct them to go talk to their accountant. But here is a huge benefit. It doesn't apply to second homes down the shore, doesn't apply to investment properties. If it's your primary residence, you've lived in the home 2.5 of the last 5 years, that's all you need to qualify. But even though you get a 1099-C, right, as long as it's your primary residence, and only your accountant's going to be able to do this for you, is you get a 1099-C at your primary residence. Mortgage Debt Services Relief Act, Congress actually in 2020, they extended this through 2025. So here's how it works. If it's just bill on the mortgage, I don't pay any income tax up to $375,000 in forgiven debt, not sales price, forgiven debt. If Bill and Denise are on the mortgage, we don't pay any income tax up to $750,000 in forgiven debt, right? So Congress, when this was rolled out in 2007, all right, the numbers were 250 grand for an individual, $500,000 for a couple. So not only did they extend it, they made it retroactive for the previous 3 years. So for that homeowner, it's a primary residence, all right? They don't have to pay any closing fees. Their debt gets reported as settled. All right, the lender waives a deficiency balance. All right, and if it's my primary residence, I don't pay any income tax on it. Completely wipe the slate clean. All right, again, don't give tax advice, but we had a house, main line, Villanova address, and it was a $600,000 shortfall. Right, this was about a year and a half ago, $600,000 shortfall, and one of the owners, husband and wife, she was a corporate accountant. She knew all about taxes and things like that. Well, it was before December 2020 when the house went under contract. Well, by January 2021, I see this bulletin come across from National Association of Realtors. We had a big win in the end of the year from the government. One was a renewal of this. So I called the client back, and I was actually with the Keller Williams agent. We did the listing on. Called the client back, and this is, the short sales approved. We're getting ready for settlement. I said, hey, you remember that we were talking about that 160 grand you'd have to pay? I said, I'm going to send you a link to the IRS. You don't have to pay any income tax at all because they qualify for the mortgage debt services. Now, I give you that as an egregious example, $600,000 shortfall, right? Imagine the person that's making like 70 grand a year and they get hit with $70,000 1099-C. All right. Now their mortgage problem is an IRS. Okay. Don't give tax advice, but this is one of the key benefits. You want to talk about credit score?
Yes. Yeah.
How long did you have to be in principal residence to be able to, you said you put in here?
2.5 years. And how you prove that is what address is on your tax return. Okay, that's it.
And the
Good
the
question.
credit impact a lot of sellers will say, I'm not going to do a short sale. It's going to impact my credit. I've read all about it on the internet and it is going to tank my credit. Well, the question to ask them is, how long has it been since you've made your mortgage payments? I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 6 months. Okay, the short sale is not affecting your credit. The derogatories of the year of the missed payments is what is affecting the credit. But you will hear from almost every seller. I read on the internet that the short sale tanks my credit, and they completely forget about the fact that it was the missed mortgage payment that tanked their credit. Think about that debt. They owe $300,000. They're going to settlement after the short sale closes. That $300,000 is going to say settled as agreed. That number's now not in their debt to income ratio. So they're going to see their credit scores ticking up month after month as soon as this closes, not tank. A lot of them do not understand that it's delinquencies, not short sale. In the event that they were able to stay current, the example I gave you of the person from August that needs to sell, we have been told by mortgage lenders that 2.5 to 3 years, you can get in a new home again. Even if you maintain your score, you were current, you can't buy a home the very next month if you short sold because you did not meet a financial obligation to a previous lender. They're not going to go and give you money the next month. They want to see that you stayed on track. So 2.5 to 3 years to buy again.
Versus a foreclosure or bankruptcy, you're looking at a 5 to 7 year. Right. I put some stats together. Does anybody do business outside of Philly? Like Delaware County out that way? Okay. So I always like to put together stats and we're gonna finish up here. But here's what we also saw during the pandemic. One of the other CARES Act protections was the Fed put in place a 2-year moratorium on all foreclosure filings. So, and most of the lenders didn't start foreclosing again until the end of last year. So what we have is we're seeing clients come to us having paid a mortgage for 4 and 5 years now. All right, because under the CARES Act protection, the lenders weren't able to foreclose. All right, so now what we're seeing is the lenders, mortgage companies, they're turning foreclosures back on. Right now we're seeing drip. Delaware County right now, this is Realty Track. I'm not sure if any of you follow that, but right now I was looking at the pre-foreclosure number. All right, because those are folks that are behind their mortgage that have not yet decided, or have not been put into the actual foreclosure program yet. But Delaware County right now, there's roughly 1,200 pre-foreclosures. Any idea how many are in Philadelphia County right now? Take a guess.
About 1,160 number.
Oh, that's Delaware County.
That's Delaware County.
It's Philadelphia, Michigan.
And down.
Ooh, a little high. Cut that in half.
I said,
4,500 active foreclosures right now, just in Philadelphia County. 4,500. The lenders are turning them all back on. Okay, now again, a lot of these are going to have equity. They're not going to be short sale distressed property. Okay, but Philadelphia actually has the highest per capita of any city in the United States, as far as the number of homes in foreclosure in Philadelphia versus the total number of properties that are for sale. All
And
right,
if
so
you're, I'm sorry, if you're marketing to any of these, meaning marketing at the sheriff's sale time, when they're on the list, is not the time. Remember, Bill talked about how much money they save, they want to short sale it, they've already spent all the attorney money. There is no leverage a month before a sheriff's sale to say, hey, you don't want to foreclose, we just spent a year's worth of fees, we do want to foreclose.
Yeah, so fantastic stuff. I just, you guys, we have like 5 minutes.
yeah, this is it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
There are two things that number one, talk a little bit more about the services that you offer to an agent who runs into one of these opportunities. I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to do that. And then also, I thought at the end of the exciting, like the market opportunity. Right? If I was a newer agent and I wanted to take advantage of some of these opportunities, I hate to call them that, right? Because obviously it's someone else's tragedy, but at the same time, for someone who's trying to get into listing, trying to capitalize on this growing market, how would someone get into it?
You do the market, then I'll talk about CPA.
Okay, so from a market opportunity perspective, there's you have the public record, right? So you can actually go on like the civil docket if you have a client that is struggling, find out from that how far along they are in foreclosure. It's Philadelphia's a little tougher because some of the other cities have websites where you can go in and when they get the civil filing, right? You can get the civil filing and you say, okay, there, and it's automated, you go online. Here you actually have to go into the Prothonotary office in town, but it's not hard to find foreclosures. It's public information. You go into the Prothonotary office.
Can you spell it?
PROTHO.
ONOTARY.
Yeah, basically it's Protho Notary, Prothonotary, Protho Notary Office. All right, and it's right over here, City Hall. All right, you can actually go in there and Philadelphia's a little behind because you can go on and find, if you plug in a homeowner's name, you can see what stage of the civil filing they're in when the papers were filed in the courts, but unfortunately, you have to go to get a paper trail, but the information is there. When someone gets served papers, right, as I said earlier, meaning you defaulted on your mortgage, you couldn't bring the loan current, they've hired the attorney goes out and literally the sheriff will show up at their home and post a package about that thick on their door. All right, there's another 5 to 6 months before there's an actual sheriff's sale. So there's plenty of time between notice to when they actually get served. I would highly recommend staying away from the foreclosure lists because by the time someone goes into Prothonotary, gathers all those lists and then sells it out to you, there's already umpteen people that already have that information. All right, you can get ahead of the curve and you literally can walk to it. All right, Prothonotary.
Yeah, and like we said, reverse mortgages are huge, any relatives or anybody, if
Yeah,
you
just-
want to try and sell them. But as far as our company, we are here to determine whether or not, we want to waste our time before you waste your time and energy. So as Robin and I have a couple short sales together now, he called me and said, oh my gosh, I have this new client. I'm like, that name is so familiar. And I was like, wait, she was with somebody else, she was with another agent, and we did facilitated their short sales, but she was unrealistic. She swore her house was worth here, didn't need to be a short sale. So I said, let me jump back in and see if she's now willing to move forward, list and sell this property as a short sale. As soon as you think somebody may owe more than the value, or they haven't paid their mortgage payments, call our company. You have our cards. It doesn't have to be a short sale. That one deal I told you about wasn't a short sale. We are more than willing to, pull a search, look into the numbers. We have searchers and help you through this before you waste your marketing time, energy, or dollars. If it does become a short sale, we do not interfere with your commission. Our company gets paid by a buyer, not as a premium. So if the buyer is offering, for easy number sakes, $100,000 on their offer, we get a 3% fee from the buyer. But they can ask for closing cost help from the short sale lender. So the buyer says to the short sale lender, seller's walking away with nothing anyway, so there's no bearing on them. So in the agreement of sale, you're gonna ask for a 3% seller's assist, and that offsets our company fee. It's a credit and a debit. We will help pay the HOA. We will never take away from your commission. We get paid strictly by the buyer. If they're cash buyers, banks obviously don't offer sellers assist to cash buyers. They lower their offer by that amount because their cash is cash. So you don't need to ask for a seller's assist. Did you have a question?
No, you just repeat the word,
Yeah, it's the section on the agreement of sale, you can ask for 3% seller's assist, just plop that in there, and the mortgage company actually gave us that suggestion. Wells Fargo, probably about 18 years ago, because 18 years ago, it was 2, 2, and 2, we were trying to find a way to get our company paid and to get the agents paid, so they didn't have to walk away from the short sale. And a negotiator or loss mitigator of Wells Fargo said, you're working hard. I mean, we're right for loss, so I'll just have buyers ask for closing costs out. So we are not a premium.
Yeah, we got to finish up here. Everybody
Cards for any
Yeah.
questions, any,
get you that.
shoot me an email on that.
The realty traffic, is that all get covered? That's-
No, realty trap is, I was gonna say, we'll get you the number, all right,
The ISIN.
the ISN,
Okay.
the 800 number, we'll get you that.
But I was basically, that realty track to have it publicly available.
Yeah, just subscribe to it. You can actually, you can probably find some of the trends. Realty trap is real, I mean, they will literally have, it looks like silly. They'll have pictures of the properties on there, but the thing about realty trap, they'll actually give you down to the zip code about it. So you can track the statistics, literally, any of the zip codes you want, a specific area you want to focus in on. They'll have a copy, so they'll have a list of the stats, but then they'll also have pictures of the actual properties. Yeah.
And our lines are open, you can shoot us a text, Robbie, about it, like our cell phones are on there. Even if you just say, I forget what you said, it's not a short sale, can you help? You know, we answer all the time, right? Even if it's not a short sale, we reach out. We brought sandwiches for
Yeah,
you
lunch is
for
out there.
lunch, it's out there, enjoy.
That's why you should have involved.
Oh my gosh, please involve us the second you meet the person.
Yeah.
Not after it's under contract, not after we would rather get the payoffs and let you know it's not a short sale right now. It may be after 3 more reductions, we'll check in with you through it, even when it's not a short sale, we still email, check in on the listing. And great, people walk away with paying it off in full, we step aside. We don't get paid till the time of closing like everybody else. There's no fees up front.
That's the best way to get you that number, the phone number for, like, to get it to everybody.
Oh, yeah, if you just email me, then
Just email to them.
yeah,
All right, so we'll email that, the HUD numbers, in case you ever run across that.
yeah, I'll fill it on Facebook.
Right. All right, thanks, everybody, for
All
your time
right,
today.
enjoy the rest of your educating day.
Want to make sure you did, I know you guys.
All right, thanks, Thomas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is your beloved here today?
No, not today.
Because I have, no.
This one, you know, if you want to play 60, I was like.
I'd rather.
This year, this long was like.
So it's so
Just in the picture session.
It's so good.
You can also be this things from like. Oh, should be reading. To like. Oh,
Tomorrow, and even if it's like the so I can figure that would be huge. It's like, I'll stop about it. I think that's one of us. I gotta get something in that box. I don't know what's the same. It's what we use. We also. Yeah, we also have circling.
Yeah.
If you start, just kind of where you kind of use your traffic, but talking, if you're talking, trying to find it.
Or meeting.
Yeah. We call it journey, a little like running in all directions. We're gonna have to get no more journey. Oh.
And it's the same companies and it's. Yeah, so it's gonna be do. And she asked it was, you guys can hear you.
What was he saying? I mean, that's what
She's high. I see it. I don't think I got up to this one in that part. I was so big.
I learn a new thing every time I'm like within a 5-foot radius of him.
So yeah, my mother was the reason that you were. It says.
I'm also, it's like, I don't know anything new, so I know everything on. Prime example. Like somebody will give me and a true like go somewhere. And they're like Jen and I kind of my small vacation. It's music. So I looked at it. I was thinking, what's really that? Maybe that. But instead. I don't expect that's the next year. Well. We're going to get down. Certain reasons. You're on. I could sign. Sunday yesterday, something she's like, this year's gonna be a different year. She had a listing that went like she but very much not her. It's not. She goes out. Taking my calls. People like, no one has.
Then more, yeah, so I do, so.
She's like, I used to live with Sarah, and meanwhile, she's like, living people off, working on people, I'm like. Being in the home, it's only driven into the trouble.
A little, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to figure out in my head. Well, yeah, this whole beat up, like, good.
It's so fun. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't know. Well, it's like.
It's great, right? Wasn't it? Not originals.
It was here when I met her. You know, you have to look for a bottle. No, so she can wait. Oh, you want me to tell? So nervous. Floor is yours, guys. Hey, everyone.
So really quickly, I am the newest, or I should say the least experienced on this panel. Ashley, who's in the back. Ashley, who's in the back, she actually was in class with me. What year did we go to real estate school? It was almost 4 years ago. Yeah, but I kind of just hovered around and really just started taking this career super seriously last year. But at any rate, we were kind of talking and we were just kind of coming up with different topics, and I was just being transparent. I said, you know, before I got into real estate, like I definitely thought like it had to look a particular way. I definitely thought that I was going to be like Christina and my husband was going to be like Tarek on Flipper Flop. And I was 100% that. But then I got here and it looks anything but that. So our intent this morning is to kind of offer you a myriad of perspectives that you might want to adopt with your career. Right. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hey, I'm Ernest King. I run a husband and wife team. My wife is over there being a paparazzi. We run a team of about 6 agents. So in totality, it's 8 of us. I've been around for about 16, 17 years, have some investment experience, retail experience, running a team experience. So that's my brief resume for this way.
And I am Marquise, and I work with the TCS group, formerly known as the Condo shop. Like I said, somehow I'm not Christina. My husband did not turn into Tarek. That said, I have kind of found a niche in doing a ton of rental properties. I don't do rental exclusively, but I do want to tell you guys, bloom wherever you are. You don't have to wait until you're perfect, because that perfection is likely never going to come. So we'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. But again, I'm Marquise.
I'm Jennifer Nelson. I'm with the Best Philly Homes team. I've been licensed agent for a little over 20 years. Fell into real estate totally by accident. Wasn't anything I wanted to do. I always had sales jobs. People would say, oh my God, you'd be a good realtor. And I was like, I don't want to do that. They work all the time. I don't want to work all the time. A realtor hired me my specialty was coming in and organizing and cleaning up people's homes, businesses. An agent hired me and after 3 months said, you can't leave. My business has never run this efficiently. You have to stay. He paid for me to get my real estate license. And I took so much off his plate that we were able to grow a team. And this was back 20 years ago when not everybody had a team. There were just a few selects that were around. And so it was just a special little niche. And I could switch brokerages, switch agents, and help them grow a team. And then in 2008, the market crashed. And I thought, this is not for me anymore. I'm going to take some time out. So I put my license in a referral system, which was the best thing I could have done. And I still continued to work my database. I grew my own pet sitting business, but I was referring out 2 to 5 deals a year. So that was a little extra income coming in. And I stayed in touch and did consulting for different agents. And at the end of 2019, a friend of 20 years asked me to come back and just kind of help clean him up. And then he was like, what are you doing? You need to come back, but don't run a team. Don't do all the other behind the scenes stuff. Just sell this time. So jump back in 2020 and the pandemic hit. So I left during one crisis and came back during another. And in that time, everything had changed. The way that I had been taught to do business, the way I did marketing, everything completely changed. I had to relearn all the documents. I had to relearn the way that I was doing business that I now do now. And now I'm assistant team lead of the Best Philly Homes. And we're a team of 5 of us. And we're like a little family. And we are helping our agents grow. So wish all of you a lot of luck. And hopefully you'll get some feedback out of all the different things that we've done to stay our careers as stable in different outcomes.
So the baton got passed to me. So I'll start off with, this is an obvious one, being a buyer agent. I'm sure most of you know what that means to be a buyer agent. prospect, you do tours, you negotiate the offer, things of that nature. Let me see here. I didn't know why it's not, sorry about that. State, well, this stuff got changed around some. Real estate investment specialist. So I want to come back to that one. Gotcha. Yeah, that's not good. There it is. So like I mentioned, you prospect, stay in contact with your sphere of influence. Try to stay away from the Zillow stuff at first and the realtor.com because it's really expensive. And chasing those internet leads can be demoralizing. So the business becomes a little easier when you start off with your sphere of influence or your wedding list or whatever you want to call that. Like I said, you schedule attend tours, attend inspections, you do your walkthroughs, attend settlement, communicate with all parties in the transactions. I'm not going to read all the bullets, but you all at this point, I'm sure you know what a buyer agent is. So that's one of the roles that you can play. One of the more obvious roles.
So listing agent, you're gonna market properties to sell, you're gonna meet with potential sellers, you're gonna do listing presentations. You are gonna do your marketing and you're gonna reach out and try to bring buyers in to buy your listing. You wanna collect offers, you wanna know how to review them, you wanna know how to guide your sellers along to help make the best decision when you're countering an offer. It depends on the market. And you also want to provide to your sellers a solid list of contractors, any vetted vendors that you have. My people call all the time and they could say, hey, we're finally, 5 years down the line, we're finally getting a kitchen in. Who do you know can help us install a kitchen? And I'm like, I got somebody. Always collect everybody's info. The one thing about this job, no matter what you do, is networking. I cannot stress it enough. You always want to tell everybody you are a realtor. You want to make it known. Don't tell somebody that you're waiting tables and you're babysitting during the day. Nobody wants to know that this is your part-time job. You always want to stress that real estate is who you are and what you do. They bump into you at the other job, just say, oh, I'm just picking up a couple hours. Don't let them know. But if you are strong in saying that you are a realtor, they're going to believe you. And so part of that is networking all the time. Make sure everyone knows what you do. Gather contractor information, gather other vendors' information. Even if you don't think it's important, at some day it might. Put it in your database. Always, always, always put it in your database.
That's a great point. I just want to piggyback off of that point about not being a secret agent. When I first started doing retail, because I started investing first, and then I went into retail later, I was a full-time probation officer. But to Jen's point, I told so many people I was an agent, even my colleagues at probation, they only saw me as a realtor. They didn't even see me as an officer of the courts. And it did help. I made more money being a realtor than my full-time job because that was just who I was. So
and it's true, because recently one of my neighbors called, he's thinking of selling, and he was like, I need Jen to give me some comps. And he's one of these guys that doesn't know who's listening. He's got to get it from 20 different people. So I went in and I ran him some numbers and gave it to him. And he said, yeah, my buddy's a bartender and he does real estate on the side. I know this girl and she does it on the side. And I gave him everything immediately. Everyone else was still working their other jobs, but I got it to him immediately. And he said, you know what? You're the most professional one. And I'm like, well, this is what I do full time. This is what I do. I'm not doing those other things. Even if I was doing those other things, I would never tell anybody. Never, ever, ever. I am a realtor. And that will help sell yourself.
Great point. Next slide, please. This is you, boss lady.
Thank you. So to me, my tenants are my babies. Like, I take them so seriously. It doesn't matter. I mean, I love like $3,000, $4,000 rents, but the truth of the matter is we don't live in San Francisco or New York City, right? We live in Philadelphia. So you won't necessarily see rents that high. That said, I treat everybody the same. I have to tell you, you've heard a couple of times a reference sphere of influence. To me, my sphere of influence also includes my colleagues. Okay, you'd be surprised how many times you'll get leads because this one right here, she's got a rental. Hey, Marquise, do you want these leads? Or this one right here, he's too busy because, you know, he's got a whole team. Hey, Marquise, do you want these leads? I sure do. So, again, don't just nurse your family, your friends, but also build rapport. Don't be that secret agent. Build rapport, build relationships, again, with your colleagues. You can start right here where you are. One of the biggest mistakes that I made was being that secret agent. Again, you're good enough, just how you are, where you are with what you have. You really are.
And I would tell you that seasoned agents, a lot of them, like when I came back in, a lot of my friends that stayed in after 08 when I dropped out, they heard I was back. They even said, hey, you know what? I'm at this point in my career. I don't want to deal with rentals anymore. And I was like, I will gladly take that, whether they had the listing and they threw everything my way, or they just had ones. They're like, I got this call. They can only do 1,200. I was like, I don't care. And I have met with them. You have to have those conversations and say, hey, if you're paying this for rent, why aren't you getting a mortgage? Open that conversation. I have been easily turning potential renters into buyers. And if they weren't ready that year, even though I put them in touch with a lender to start that conversation, they've come back the following year. I find out when their lease is up, we start prepping 6 months out, and then I've turned them into buyers. So don't look at it as like, there's some people that won't touch rentals. Rentals are money. Rentals can be money. I'm not saying take on every single one and that consumes your business, but I wouldn't say no to it.
Yeah. And I will tell you, I would say probably a good 75 to 80% of everything I've learned about rentals is from this guy right here. If you guys don't know Boots, definitely, I'm putting you on the spot. Here I am.
Take his class.
Yeah, definitely, you know, buy him a cup of coffee, but he's not gonna allow you, but at any rate, just, you know, become a sponge. I'm gonna quote him almost verbatim. You do rentals, not solely for the commission, obviously, right? You do it for the experience. I am from South Jersey, and I was born right around the corner at Pennsylvania Hospital. So you couldn't tell me I didn't know everything about Philly, because I've been coming here since I was a teenager, right? Well, guess how much I didn't know Philly, right? But guess what has helped me to know, not just, it's crazy to me that I have memorized zip codes. It's crazy to me that, you know, I know neighborhoods like the, you know, like the back of my hand. And I'm sorry, yes, I am biased. I do not like the Northeast. That said, I love how doing rentals has enabled me to not just know the neighborhoods, know the buildings. I swear to you guys are gonna start to know the doorman. Okay, I'm super cheap. I will not give out a business card, not a tangible one, because that probably costs like 3 or 4 cents. I'm not giving out my business card if I don't have to. Many of these buildings, which will ask you for your business card when you go to do a showing. I've been there so much that I can just say, hey, you know. That said, you guys are going to make a ton of money, so you won't have to be so cheap with your business cards. But to the points of these slides specifically, again, your sphere of influence is humongous. As she talked about turning rentals into purchases, that's going to happen because you guys are going to stay in touch with them. You're going to stay in touch, you know, ideally, you know, throughout the, I don't mean like every month, but maybe, you know, a quarter, 3 months,
Every 3 to 4 months.
ask, you know, how's it going? Certainly 6 months, 9 months. Again, you kind of want to, and this is the honest to goodness truth. I have been doing rentals like consistently for about a year, right? And I'm seeing people already, they are reaching the maturation of those original leases. And guess what they're discussing? Guess what they want to talk about? And guess who they want to talk about it to, right? So again, let those rentals be your babies as well. One of the common threads, I don't care what you're doing, you got to market yourself, right? You have to, you know, market it, you know, in this case, if you're a listing agent, you want to market the rentals, right? You're going to have to become very familiar with all of the paperwork. Somewhere on here, it mentions the lease, but it's not just the lease. I can hear Vicky in my mind about the consumer, this consumer notice. I kick myself every single time I didn't begin with it. I hate when I need to get paid and I have to go and clean up my paperwork. Don't do that, guys. So again, your tenants, while you're kind of blooming and becoming the rock star agents that you're gonna be, because side note, we really do have the best training, not just like, you know, again, tangible, you know, I know you guys all have the MREA book, I know you guys do, but I'm talking people too. Take people, when people offer, oh, I'll show you such and such, like really let them do it because they really will. I have to tell you, again, going off the slides a little bit, find your tribe. It's here. It's like, you know, find your people. This is the honest to goodness truth. In my mind, I have, I call it like a Mount Rushmore of my favorite people here. These are people who are smart. These are people that are dependable. These are people that are trustworthy. These are people that are helpful. Now, it is a bit of a motley crew. Like, they don't necessarily have a ton of things in common with one another, but find yours. Find yours. Get your rentals until you are, you know, selling these $1 million dollar homes. But again, you're good enough just where you are.
Mic drop. Okay, this is my favorite. Can I take this slide?
Yeah, it's all good.
Real estate investment specialist. Now, the obvious benefit of working with an investor is you get that repeat business. Because real estate investors, they're always buying, selling. A lot of them are landlords. So then you get the tenants, you get the rental listing, you get the sale listing. When they sell, they want to buy. So this is probably, yeah, I can say this is my favorite part of the business. There is a learning curve with working with investors because oftentimes they're smarter than you because, you know, they're spending a lot of money. So they have to be. But with that, you learn a lot as well. And a lot of investors, they know, excuse me, your role as an agent, which mostly is to find a good product. So they don't care too much about how much you know. So with the quote unquote regular consumers, you kind of have to impress them with your real estate knowledge. Investors aren't looking for that. They just want you to find a good product. However, you should be familiarized with some of the terminology like IRR, which is internal rate of return, cash on cash return, cap-free, and know the formulas. I would say if you know those 3 things right there, that will help you at least get into the door with an investor and be good at bird dogging, which is, you know, everyone's familiar with the term bird dog, basically find a product. Have real-time knowledge of the rental market. Because once again, a lot of investors, they want to be landlords. So they rely on you for that rental data. Some places you can get that rental data is, once again, someone like him can tell you, you can do rental meter, Zillow, sometimes the MLS. That's not the best place for the rental data, in my opinion. The property management companies is probably the best to get that rental data. Especially when you're dealing with out-of-state investors. They don't know the market, so you rely on you. And a lot of that rental data is not on the MLS. So you have to make your connections. You got to know where the money is. So back there, there's Jim. Jim has the money. Some investors want to use hard money, some are still using conventional. So you got to have your access to capital in order. And once again, the properties, that's probably the biggest in my opinion when you're working with investors. You have to have the inventory. So you know, you have to make friends with the block captains and the guys on the stoop, you know, smoking the Lucy's. They have to be your best friends because they know where the properties are.
Operations manager, this can take on so many different aspects of business. One of the things was I came from an executive background working in offices. And so I learned how important certain things are to keep the business running. So when I got into real estate, it's the same kind of way. When you are on a team, and if you do decide to become an operations manager, one of the things you have to reach out or say to your team lead is, what are the aspects of this business that you do not find joy in and that have taken them on? So they might say paperwork or, oh, I don't want to make those calls, but you know, can you call and follow up on these people and see what's available and see this? Or like, can you set up my appointments? And I would always reach out and find out what their weak spots are and take it on. So it kind of became like a Jill of all trades, and I would do it all. So I was setting up appointments, I was scheduling showings, I was calling for feedback when agents wouldn't provide it. I would do all the transaction paperwork. So long list of things that go into operations manager. And you don't have to be stronghold into one thing. So some teams will have you, they only have somebody who does listings. They only have somebody who does transactions. Find out if you don't want to sell full-time, there are other aspects to bring in money. Reach out to your team and say, you know what? I want to sell on the side, but I am happier doing transactions, and it's okay because there are people in this business that need you. And there are some people, it's a natural high to do the behind the scenes stuff, and they don't want to be that front person. There's always room for you in a brokerage, at a team. If you are unhappy on a team or you're unhappy doing something by yourself, please go talk to Andrew, JP, Zach, Tori, talk to any of them. They can easily help pull out what you're happy doing and find you a position in the brokerage. One of the things I love about KW was over the years I had my license in referral, I did consulting for different agents. And they were jumping around from different brokerages. So I was popping into Coldwell Banker, I was popping into Compass. I saw the way things worked and I didn't see a fit for me. And when I was ready to come back, the one thing I said to everyone was, who can get me caught up on the agreement of sale? When I left, it was 8 pages. When I came back, it's what, 14, 16 now. Seller's property disclosure was 4 pages when I stepped out full time, and now that's like 11. So I had different brokerages would just print it out and hand it to me and go, well, here you go, just read it. That wasn't getting me where I needed to be to run my business. KW, I sat down with Vicki. Oh, and by the way, at other brokerages, you don't always get to see your broker. They're not reachable. You can call, they might schedule lunch with you and stand you up. Vicki, no matter what questions you have, Vicki will always answer a call. You text her, she may say, hey, I'm busy, but I call you in 5 minutes. She will do it. I've known Vicki for 20 years. When she was a buyer's agent, she was like a mom to everybody. Now she's a broker and she is mom to everybody. Vicki will get you any information you need. If you're on a team, always go to your team leads first, then reach out to Vicki. So when I came on, Vicki was like, this is what you need to do. Take the agreement of sale class, and she just lined up a list of classes that I had to take, which made me a stronger agent. And I don't care how seasoned you are, you still every once in a while should pop into a class. The one thing we were talking about in this industry, every day you learn something new. There is nothing repetitive about it. Over 20 years experience, over 16 years, brand new in the past, 3 to 4 years, every day you learn something new. So as operations manager, you take on all these different aspects and it really can't even be defined. It's defined maybe by your limits, what you're capable of doing.
And to your point, what your team needs as well. I know a director of operations for a team, he's on salary making like 150,000. So, and that's a salary. So that
And usually you can negotiate too. So you might get a salary and then say, hey, I want to sell on the side.
Yep.
You can still help your friends and help your family, and you're getting that cut. If you don't feel comfortable making that your full-time job, do something on a team, get a little salary coming in until you grow that confidence. There's enough business in this industry to keep everybody going.
Sure. Yeah, we had that hybrid system on our team. Our director of operations, she gets an hourly rate for doing non-real estate transactional stuff. For real estate transactional stuff, she gets a bonus, and for marketing, she gets another rate. So it's definitely, and then she, to your point too, she can still do her own business because we want her to sell it. Transaction coordinator, sorry, JP. This is an opportunity, for those that don't know, JP's wife, she's excellent at doing transaction coordinating work, but that is an opportunity.
It's a big part of the business.
Yes.
Your transaction coordinator, you need to know what documents are needed. You need to know how to completely fill them out. You have to make sure every signature, every initial is on there. You need somebody who has attention to detail that can take care of those for you. Take Me to Closing is in-house and you can hire them. And we always say, you always hear people say ROI, return on investment. If you have the money and can do it, ROE, return on your energy. If paperwork is not what you do, outsource it. take me to closing, we'll gladly help you, hold hands, do it, get you to closing. But if you're comfortable, like I'm comfortable, I do my own paperwork, but I'm a control freak. And I couldn't tell you how many times when I'm on the listing side, a newer agent over the past couple years got in because the pandemic was booming. They brought me paperwork. I've had to, before I can even present it, I have to call and say, all right, line A, you didn't sign. This, you didn't sign. You know, there's certain things I will point out and I won't because I'm protecting my seller. But I still have to go back and say, you missed initials on this, you didn't sign, this wasn't signed. I need your BFI. Like there are people that won't even call me and will just blindly send over half completed documents. They look like an ass. I have to call, I have to get it in order and say, this is what I need, what I need. Some people do have transaction coordinators and I still, a couple of them I have to remind, or they'll say, oh, that one slipped by me. You can never have enough set of eyes on a document. But a transaction coordinator can be, if you have the money, such a valuable source to grow your business. Like I said, ROE, return on your energy. If paperwork is not where you are, you find a company like Take Me to Closing that will definitely take that over for you to free up your time to make those calls, do your sphere, get out, market. Go with other things that make you happy about this industry.
And some teams provide that service. Shameless plug, our teams take care of that service for you. But you know, to Jen's point, it definitely will help you grow your business for sure, 100% for sure. And it also will help you protect your license because, as most of us know in here, there's a lot of dates and things that we have to keep track of, earnest money deposits, et cetera, et cetera. And if you miss a date or submitting an earnest money deposit, you can lose your client's money and you can lose your license. So that's a very important one.
Yeah.
That's underrated right there.
Deadlines, so important.
Right. So that's the last slide. Any questions?
Somebody's gotta have something. We're all over the board up here. We can cover anything.
I just want to reiterate one last point. There are so many roles that are waiting for you all to fulfill. It is not black and white, it is a mosaic. I mean, there are still other roles that we didn't even really talk about. We talked about a little bit about property management. You could be an appraiser. There's so many things that you could do.
And, excuse me, and Jen mentioned one too, indirectly, but directly, being a referral agent. I know of a referral agent, he did about 14 million in 1 year just in referrals. So he went to, what's the thing we have, it was Mega Camp, one of those things. And he would just network with, you know, agent in Delaware, agent in Jersey, agent in Texas, et cetera, and that's all he did. And he did 14 million in sales, just being a referral.
And it was interesting because when I in 08, when the market crashed, I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? I had always grown teams. The market was not an environment for me to go out on my own as a solo agent. I didn't think I had it in me at the time. So I put my license in escrow for a couple months. You can leave it in escrow for up to 5 years. I don't suggest doing it. I put it in for a couple months while I figured it out. And somebody at a different brokerage, a friend that had gone to a different brokerage, said, hey, why don't you put it in the referral business at my brokerage? I'll gladly take on your business. And I was like, well, hey, that's pretty awesome. So I did. And then I stayed in touch with a lot of variety of agents. They reached out and I would say, because not all my clients were fit for this one agent. So again, working your sphere, networking, I had different agents and I would say to them, hey, my license is in referral. I'd love to send my business to you. And some flat out told me to my face, I don't want that. I don't want anything out of my commission. And I was like, okay, next person. And I just moved on. So the market is changing. And if you are starting to have those second thoughts of maybe this isn't for me, do not let that license go. Do not. Talk to Zach. Zach can tell you all about KW's referral program. You can put your license in referral and I'll gladly take your business. I'm glad that you do the referral fee. I don't care. I don't care what it is. I will gladly take it. And it was always shocking me that there were agents that flat out said to me, no, I'm not going to do that. But they got my client and my client could also turn into a repeat client for them. So it was sad on them to turn that down. So I always tell people, you know, because you'll find out people you are signed up with now might not be in the business a year from now. Just if you're having second thoughts, do not let that license go. talk to somebody about putting in a referral, learn what you have to do. The fees to keep it active, I think, are around $100 a year. You still have to do continuing ed every 2 years. That's maybe less than $300, and I do it online. And I just, every 2 years, I was like, oh, that's up. Oh, I gotta do that. But the fees were very low. You can't talk price with somebody, but I still would be available. If somebody needed me to open a door, I could go do that. They would, and I had agents that would pay me $50 and say, Jen, I'm going to be on vacation. Can I throw these people your way? Will you get my buyers into these houses? And I would, but I wouldn't talk price. And I told them if they had any questions, they could contact their agent. But I at least had this little side gig of I was still licensed and could do certain things, but never let it go. You've worked so hard to get it. Don't let it go.
Great advice.
It can be kind of overwhelming, especially when you're starting out to see these different roles and figure out where you fit. What would your advice be for new agents who are trying to figure out what their niche looks like? Where would you begin?
Talk to everybody.
Yeah.
Talk to everybody. Introduce, like, the office people are still trickling in from time to time. Walk up and introduce yourself and say, hi, you know, since I just started, and maybe follow them, start following them online, start following their progress, you can look up on the MLS, you can put in an agent's name and you can track their inventory and you can see what production numbers they're at, and find somebody that's at a level, maybe they have a little bit of everything. Set up lunch, set up drinks, just say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain. So part of the reason we can grow our business is networking like this. Like if I had a question, investors, that's not my point. Totally would call Earnest and say, hey, I got this guy, where do I start with this? Or pass him off and get a referral fee. So.
And I would just add, that's a great point. I would add, like Marquise said, start with the renters. Renters and teams and busier agents always need help with buyers. So you can be a showing agent, make $75 or whatever, and, you know.
Come up with your price.
Come up with your price, or you can do a percentage. Sometimes I'll give a buyer and give you 35%. Well, I can't do that now because I have a team, but other, agents bigger than I am, they always need help with buyers. And I would say tenants and buyers, definitely.
And doing open houses.
Oh,
I can't stress it enough. So 20 years ago, we hated doing open houses. All you got were nosy neighbors. You didn't really get anybody. I'm back after a 13-year hiatus. Open houses are where it's at. I cannot stress it enough. How many times I'm doing an open house and I have somebody in because they saw it online and I'm like, oh, you're pre-approved? No, they're not pre-approved. They didn't know that was a step. So now I'm meeting people and setting them on the guideline. You're not ready to buy this year? Let's set you up with a new rental. I'm picking up clients.
yes.
And it might not turn into something tomorrow. It might be 6 months down the line, it might be a year, but you got to start doing that. And open houses are the way to go.
Be consistent with it. Don't do one a month and say, oh my God, they suck. You gotta do more. I think I was talking to Mike McCann one day and he said he was doing about 4 a weekend. He had 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. He would do like 11 to 1 and then 1 to 2, something like that, 1 to 2:30. I forget his schedule, but he was doing 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday consistently every week. And then to Jen's point, you start to build momentum. You have a database now, you do your drips, use your command, write JP, do all that stuff. It's smart. This is that way.
I would say just show up, because that's how you're gonna get all of this stuff. Just show up. When I first started, like, I didn't understand teams. I didn't know, like, was it like high school? Like, did I have to try out? Like, I didn't understand. So I kind of would just like, look around, and ultimately I landed on my team because unofficially I'd done some business because I showed up eventually, right? Because people say, hey, well, Marquise, do you want this? And so of course, again, like I said, of course I do. So just show up. I don't have a ton of, like I said, I do mostly rentals. My transactions with respect to, homes, purchases, I don't have a ton, but guess what? The majority of them, including the offer that I just submitted the other day, they were from open houses. This is again a true story. I did an open house maybe in December, and I was really angry because I have personal signs that I purchased, right? And I left one somewhere in that neighborhood, right? So I was really angry about this open house. True story. like 3 weeks ago, a guy was like, hey, Marquise, I met you at this open house. Would you represent me? He didn't want that house, but he did want another house, and he found himself. And I didn't even think I did such a great job at the open house, but again, I showed up. So just show up here, you know, show up at the open houses. This is a service industry, so we serve, that's what we do.
And I'll just add too, when I first started, I turned down nothing.
Yeah, I said no, then
Only my collar, I turned down nothing. $800 rentals, $65,000 shell in North Philly, 30,000. So I did like a $7,000 lot. I turned down nothing. Even to this day, I still try to keep that mindset. I turned down nothing. So I highly recommend that too. Don't turn your nose up. Oh, that's only a housing choice voucher. No, take all the business. And you don't know what it can
keeps you
turn
in
to.
touch, keeps you in touch with the market. Even if you're selling $1 million homes, I know some $1 million agents that still will do
For sure.
a lower end because they still want to know. They still want to be in the know of what's going on.
Mr. Joe.
My question for you guys, what I like about this panel is you can kind of come at it from different points of view. When you started out, how did you organize your day? One of my things about like my business and the agent business is there's like a whole day there, and what am I going to do and when am I going to do it? I think we have different organizational skills from the panel. So did you go through that, like, what am I going to do next kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you organize your day?
Do it first.
Yeah, real quick, when I first went full time, I didn't know, I was clueless. Cause you know, when you have a full-time job, you're given directives. So you just come 9 o'clock, boss tells you what to do. Yeah, I was, luckily I had my other boss, my wife. She just said, "You got a prospect, what did you do today?" So that kind of helped. Have a bossy wife.
You have to time block, like there's no getting away from that. There is one of my early teachers is sitting in the second row to my right. He shall remain nameless, but we had, I can remember like it was yesterday, we would have every Monday at noon, we would have these trainings and time blocking. Like I kept thinking, well, once I'm here this long, or once I do this, or surely that person, whoever it is that you admire most here. Oh, they don't do it. Yes, they do. They have to. So for me, Jim, that is something that you can't run away from it. You cannot let your day run you. You've got to run your day.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's even your personal time too. When my coach told me, I was like, "The hell out of here! I'm not gonna forget my personal time." Time block everything. Time block when you gotta pick your daughter up from school. That's a great one. That's probably, yeah.
Dan's laughing because I have a habit of putting everybody before me. And now that the market's a little slower, I'm like, oh, I have a social event. I can go, I can go out for drinks. When I first started out, there are the days you're a little slower and you're like, nobody's called this morning. I learned I can't keep junk food and booze in the house because if nobody called by 11, I was like, cocktail. Can't watch the show with this bag of potato chips. So I found my most productive is in the morning because what I found is the rest of the day gets away from you real fast.
Thanks.
So one of the things we tell the agents on our team, find what works best for you. If you're high energy and more together late in the afternoon, make it late in the afternoon. But for me, my time is I wake up in the morning, usually between 6 and 7. I have a little lazy routine I like to do with the cats and the dogs and watching the news. But by 8:30 or 9 is when I open my emails, I'm checking my voicemails. And even if there is nothing on my day, I take those 2 hours between 9 and 11 and I'm making my calls. I don't care if people at work, I don't care what they're doing. I have left a voicemail. I have sent a text message. I have sent an email, letting them know I'm thinking about them, reaching out, touching base, because after I'm done with that, anything can happen the rest of the day. I can get a last minute call. They want to go see a house at 1 o'clock. Oh, I have this meeting. Oh, I'm going to come up to the office to do education day. Great, I'll schedule that in. But I found that doing it first thing in the morning, when things went off the rails late in the afternoon, I wasn't as, I guess, discombobulated because I'd be like, I had a showing at 2. Now somebody would see something at 3 and I can't get across town and I can't, blah, blah, and I'm trying to work it all. I just found if I had my morning done, that stuff was done out of the way, that I could handle things as they came in the rest of the day. Because there are nights I come home and I'm, on the phone or writing a contract 11 o'clock at night. It just helped knowing that I got those things that were important to grow my business out of the way first thing in the morning for me.
I love it.
So, yeah.
And I'll just end with prospect like a maniac. And when you have that dead time, don't fill it with booze and
You have no dead time. Let's put
Yeah.
it that way. You have no dead time.
watch legal carries, agreement to sell.
Yep.
Learn some investment terminology. That's what you fill that time when you don't have tours or listing presentation to do.
And that's how we met. Marquise and I met. So I had just transitioned back into real estate at the beginning of 2020. We started hearing about the pandemic. And I was coming up here. I was working down at the Washington Square office and I would go from 8 to 11. And then I would hop on the bus and come up here and I was in classes from 11 till 2. And then I would go out on appointments the rest of the day. And, I just kind of scheduled things around. Well, when they shut the office down and we couldn't show properties, I was just at home and I still used my morning to network and call. And I didn't make it as salesy. I wasn't calling saying, "Hi, I'm real estate." I literally was calling saying, "How are you dealing with the pandemic?" I had a reason to reach out. And I called and checked in. And the last thing I would say when I got off the phone was, "Hey, did I tell you? I'm back in real estate." It was always the last thought I left them with. So even now, when I talk to people, I call, I'm like, "Oh, I saw this on Facebook. You were doing this. I wanted to see how that trip went. What did you do?" Last thing I said, "Hey, don't forget I'm in real estate. If you have anything, please call me. If you have any friends that can help, call me." It's always the last thing I say before they hang up. I want them to remember it. It's the last thing. And they started moving all the classes to Zoom. So we'd all jump in and there were so many new agents and Marquise was one of the new agents. And we would see each other on Zoom and we would ask questions or she would pick my brain on stuff. And then we started doing calls outside of Zoom. And, she started her business and she started gung ho. And then she paid off. And after a while, I was like, I don't see her on the Zooms and I don't see her. And then when we started coming back to the office, we kept thinking I'd meet her in person. And I didn't see her for a while. And then all of a sudden she showed up at something. And then she was like, "Nah, I had to do a little work. I was working it." Now she's back 100%. Now she's involved in so much. You can always pick her brain because she has come from the new agent to where she is now. You can pick our brains. We different aspects. I know we're always available. But I always tell people, start reaching out to other agents because that's really how you're going to go. This business is all about communication. So whether it's your lenders like Jim, or it's Take Me to Closing, or another agent like Robin's out at, or are you out of the Conshohocken office? I forget. I'm not sure. So it's sure.
That's Delaware County, right?
Every town. But he's always at things in the city. But if you want to sell more out there and you want to pick, agents' brains, call Robin. Like we are such a source. And you're not doing yourself a service if you're not networking and talking to people. And come into the office more, start meeting people, come in for a class, go to lunch.
That is the key.
It is the key. It's because your main goal is you do want to work with everybody. And it's great if you have a relationship and then you're like, "Oh my God, we're doing a deal together. This is really nice." But it's all about communication.
That's it.
That's
JP is
it.
kicking us
Thank
out.
you so much.